At 71, Eleanor Hayes stood outside her own home, in the middle of a freezing winter night. Snow fell quietly around her. The kind of cold that didn't just touch your skin. It sank deeper into your bones. Behind her, the door slammed shut. Not loudly. Not angrily. Just final. "You can't stay here anymore." Her daughter-in-law's words still echoed in her ears. No argument. No hesitation. No second chance. Eleanor didn't move at first. She just stood there, holding a small worn bag in her hand, as if her body hadn't fully understood what had just happened. This was her home. 42 years of memories lived inside those walls. Her husband built that place with his own hands. Every corner carried a piece of their life. And now, she wasn't allowed inside. A curtain shifted in the neighbor's window. Someone was watching. Then another light turned on across the street. No one came out. No one said a word. But they were watching. Eleanor lowered her eyes. The humiliation hit harder than the cold. She had spent her whole life taking care of others, raising her son, supporting her husband, holding everything together, even when things fell apart. And this was how it ended. Her fingers tightened around the bag. Inside it, a few clothes and an old photograph. She didn't need to look at it. She already knew what it held. Her and Thomas, standing in front of that very house, smiling like the future would never change. Her chest tightened. For a moment, just a moment, she thought about knocking. Maybe they would open the door again. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. But something deep inside her already knew the truth. That door was never opening again. The wind picked up. Sharp. Merciless. Eleanor took a slow step forward. Then another. Her legs felt heavy, like every step carried the weight of the past behind it. The street stretched ahead, empty and silent. She didn't know where she was going. Only that she couldn't stay there. Snow crunched beneath her shoes as she walked, each step pulling her further away from the life she once knew. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. Time didn't feel real anymore. The cold grew stronger. Her breathing slowed. And for the first time, fear began to settle in. Not fear of the night, but fear of what came next. "What am I supposed to do now?" she whispered. The words disappeared into the wind. No answer came back. Only silence. Endless, heavy silence. Her body started to weaken. She looked around, hoping to see something. Anything. A light. A house. A sign. But there was nothing. Just darkness and falling snow. Then, through the trees in the distance, she saw it. A shape. Faint. Almost invisible. At first, she thought it was just her imagination. But it didn't disappear. It stayed there, waiting. Something old. Something forgotten. Eleanor blinked, trying to focus. And for reasons she couldn't explain, her heart began to beat faster. Because somehow, deep inside, she felt it. That this wasn't just a place. This was something else. Something important. Something no one knew about. And everything was about to change. The cold followed Eleanor like a shadow. No matter how far she walked, it stayed with her. Her breath came out in thin white clouds. Slow, uneven, fragile. The road stretched ahead, empty and silent. Streetlights grew fewer with every step. She didn't know this part of town well. Or maybe, she never had a reason to come this far before. Tonight, she had no choice. Her hands trembled as she pulled her coat tighter around her. But it wasn't enough. Nothing felt like enough anymore. A car passed by. Bright headlights cut through the darkness, forcing her to stop for a moment. She turned slightly, shielding her eyes. For a second, just 1 second, she thought the car might slow down. Maybe someone would roll down the window. Maybe someone would ask if she was okay. But it didn't. It kept going. The light disappeared, leaving her alone again. Eleanor let out a quiet breath. She wasn't surprised. Not anymore. She kept walking, step by step, each one slower than the last. Her legs felt weaker now, her body heavier. But it wasn't just the cold. It was everything. The words, the silence, the way they looked at her, like she didn't belong anymore. You're just making things harder for everyone. Her son's voice replayed in her mind, over and over again. She stopped walking, just for a moment. Her chest tightened, and she felt something break inside her. Not loudly, not suddenly, just quietly, like something that had been holding on for too long, finally letting go. She sat down on a wooden bench near the side of the road. It was covered in a thin layer of snow. Cold seeped through instantly. But she didn't stand up. She didn't have the strength to. Her bag slipped slightly from her hand. She caught it, holding it close to her chest, as if it was the only thing she had left. Slowly, she opened it. Her fingers brushed against the photograph. She pulled it out. Even in the dim light, she could see it clearly. Her and Thomas. Younger. Happier. Standing side by side, like nothing in the world could pull them apart. Her lips trembled. "You wouldn't have let this happen," she whispered. The wind answered instead. Soft, but cold. She looked up at the sky. Dark clouds moved slowly above her. Heavy. Endless. For the first time that night, tears filled her eyes. Not because of the cold. Not because of the pain. But because of the question that wouldn't leave her. How did it come to this? She had done everything right. Or at least, she thought she had. So where did it go wrong? Her grip tightened around the photograph. Her breathing grew uneven. For a moment, she felt completely lost. Like the world had quietly erased her. Without making a sound. The wind grew stronger again. It pushed against her, urging her to move. To stand. To keep going. Eleanor closed her eyes. Just for a second. Then slowly, she opened them again. And that's when she felt it. Not hope. Not yet. But something close. A feeling, deep inside, that this wasn't the end. That something, somewhere, was still waiting. She looked ahead again. Into the darkness. And without knowing why, she stood up. And took another step forward. There was a time when Eleanor's life felt simple. Not perfect, but steady. She met Thomas Hayes when she was 24. He wasn't rich. Didn't come from anything special. But he had something rare. Kindness. The kind that didn't need to be spoken. It just showed in everything he did. They built their life slowly. No shortcuts. No easy wins. Just hard work and patience. Their first home wasn't much. A small place with thin walls and a leaking roof. But Eleanor loved it. Because it was theirs. She still remembered those early mornings. Standing in the kitchen. Sunlight barely coming through the window. While Thomas fixed things that kept breaking. He used to smile and say, "One day, we won't have to worry like this." And she believed him. Not because of the words, but because of him. Years passed. Life got busier. Bills, responsibilities, long days that turned into even longer nights. But they never stopped working together. When Thomas struggled with money, Eleanor stepped in quietly. She took small jobs. Saved every dollar she could. Even sold her wedding bracelet once. Without telling him. Because for her, it was never about what she had. It was about what they were building. Then came their son, Daniel. Everything changed after that. In a good way. The house filled with noise. With laughter. With purpose. Eleanor gave everything to raising him. Every moment. every bit of energy she had. She made sure he never felt the struggles they went through. She protected him from it. Maybe too much. Thomas would sometimes say, "He needs to learn the hard parts too." But Eleanor would just smile. "He has time," she would reply. She wanted his life to be easier, better. And for a while, it was. Daniel grew up, got married, started his own life. Eleanor watched from the side, quietly proud. She thought she had done everything right, that she had built something strong, something that would last. But after Thomas passed away, the silence in the house changed. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It felt empty. At first, Daniel tried. He visited, called, checked on her. But slowly, things shifted. The visits became shorter. The calls became fewer. And the warmth started to fade. Eleanor noticed. Of course she did. But she didn't say anything. She told herself it was normal. That life gets busy. That people change. She didn't want to believe anything else, because the truth would have been too painful to accept. Now, walking alone in the freezing night, those memories felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. Not her. Not anymore. And for the first time, a quiet thought entered her mind. Maybe she hadn't seen everything clearly. Maybe there were things she chose to ignore. Signs that had been there all along. The truth didn't arrive all at once. It came quietly, piece by piece, like something carefully hidden over time. Eleanor didn't notice it in the beginning. Or maybe she didn't want to. It started small. So small that it almost felt harmless. One afternoon, Daniel sat beside her at the dining table. His tone was calm, casual. "Mom, there are a few papers we need to take care of," he said. "Just routine things." Eleanor looked at him, then at the documents. Pages filled with words she didn't fully understand. Legal terms. Small print. Long paragraphs. She hesitated for a second. "Is this important?" she asked softly. Daniel smiled. That familiar smile she had trusted all her life. "Of course not," he said. "It's just to make things easier." Easier. That word stayed with her. She picked up the pen and signed, without reading, without questioning, because he was her son. And mothers don't question their children. At least, she never did. Days passed. Then weeks. At first, nothing seemed different. But slowly, things began to shift. Subtly. Almost invisibly. Her bank access stopped working one morning. She thought it was a mistake. Daniel handled it. "Just a small issue, Mom. I'll fix it." He never did. Then her room changed. She was asked to move upstairs, into a smaller space. "It's more convenient," her daughter-in-law said. Convenient. Another word that didn't feel right. But Eleanor nodded anyway. She didn't want trouble. Didn't want to feel like a burden. So she stayed quiet. But the silence around her was no longer the same. Conversations stopped when she entered the room. Doors closed more often. Voices lowered. She felt it. That distance growing. Like a wall being built. One brick at a time. And still, she said nothing. Until that night. The argument started over something small. At least, that's how it seemed. A misplaced bill. A misunderstanding. But it escalated quickly. Too quickly. "You don't understand how things work anymore," her daughter-in-law snapped. Eleanor froze. I was just trying to help," she said quietly. "Help?" Daniel's voice cut in. "You're making everything harder." The words hit harder than they should have. Because they didn't sound like him. Not the Daniel she raised. Not the boy who used to hold her hand. This was different. Colder. Distant. Eleanor took a step back. I didn't mean to cause any problems. But they didn't stop. Voices grew louder, accusations sharper, until finally, Daniel said the words that changed everything. You need to leave. Silence. Heavy, crushing silence. Eleanor stared at him, waiting, hoping he would take it back, that he would realize what he just said. But he didn't. Instead, he looked away, avoiding her eyes, like the decision had already been made, long before this moment. That's when it hit her. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't anger. This wasn't a mistake. This was planned. Every paper she signed, every change in the house, every quiet conversation she wasn't part of, it all led here, to this moment, to this night. Her voice trembled. Daniel, this is my home. For a second, just 1 second, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, guilt, maybe even regret. But it disappeared just as quickly. You signed everything, Mom, he said. The words were calm, controlled, final. You don't own this house anymore. Eleanor felt the ground shift beneath her. The papers, the signatures, the trust, everything she had given, had been used against her. And now, standing alone in the freezing dark, she understood the truth. She hadn't just lost her home. She had been erased from it, like she was never meant to belong there at all. The night felt endless. Eleanor kept walking, but she no longer felt where she was going. The road had disappeared behind her. The houses were gone. Only darkness remained. And the cold. It wrapped around her slowly, tightening with every step. Her fingers were numb now. She could barely feel the bag in her hand. Her legs grew weaker, each step heavier than the last. She tried to keep moving, tried to stay focused, but her body was starting to give in. The wind cut through her coat like it wasn't even there. Sharp, relentless. It felt like the world itself was pushing her down. Just a little further, she whispered to herself. But she didn't know where further was anymore. Her breath became shallow, uneven. She stumbled, almost fell, but somehow managed to catch herself. A broken wooden fence appeared along the side of the path. Old, worn down, barely standing. Eleanor reached out, gripping it for support. Her hands trembled as she leaned against it. For a moment, she closed her eyes, just to rest, just for a second. But the silence that followed felt too heavy, too quiet. That's when it finally hit her. Not the cold, not the exhaustion, but the truth. I have nowhere to go. The words slipped out before she could stop them. And once they did, they didn't leave. They stayed, echoing inside her, over and over again. She slowly sank down, right there beside the fence. The snow beneath her was cold, unforgiving, but she didn't move, didn't have the strength to. Her bag slipped from her hand, landing softly beside her. For the first time that night, she didn't pick it up. Tears began to fall, quietly. No sobbing, no sound, just silent tears, disappearing into the snow. I gave them everything, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Years of sacrifice, years of love, every part of her life, poured into that family. And now, there was nothing left. Her shoulders trembled, not from the cold, but from something deeper, something breaking piece by piece. Her breathing slowed. Her body grew still. The wind softened, almost as if the world itself had paused. Eleanor's eyes drifted closed, just for a moment, just to rest. A dangerous kind of rest, the kind that quietly pulls you under. Her thoughts began to fade. Memories blurred together. Thomas's voice, Daniel as a child, laughter, warmth, home. All of it slipping away. And for a second, she almost let it. Almost. But then, something shifted. A faint sound, barely noticeable, like wood creaking in the distance. Eleanor's eyes opened slowly, heavy, unfocused. She blinked once, then again, and that's when she saw it. Through the trees, past the falling snow, a shape, dark, still, but real. Not her imagination, not a dream, a structure, small, hidden, almost swallowed by the forest around it. Her heart gave a weak, sudden beat. Confusion replaced the emptiness for a moment. "What is that?" she whispered. The shape didn't move. But it didn't disappear either. It stayed there, waiting. Eleanor swallowed hard. Her body resisted. Every part of her wanted to stay where she was. To give in. To stop. But something else, something deeper, pushed her forward. A quiet instinct. A final thread of strength. Her fingers pressed into the snow as she forced herself up. Slowly, painfully. Her legs shook beneath her. But she stood. Barely. Her eyes locked onto that distant shape. That small, forgotten place. And for the first time that night, she didn't feel lost. She took one step forward. Then another. Drawn toward something she didn't understand. Something she couldn't explain. But something that felt important. Because deep inside, she knew one thing. If she stayed where she was, this would be the end. But if she kept moving toward that unknown place, everything might change. The structure didn't disappear. With every step Eleanor took, it became clearer. A small cabin. Old. Quiet. Almost hidden. Snow had gathered around it, like the world had forgotten it existed. Eleanor stopped a few feet away. Her breathing was uneven, her body barely holding together. For a moment, she just stared. The windows were dark. No light. No movement. The roof sagged slightly on one side. Wood worn down by time. It didn't look safe. It didn't look welcoming. But it looked real. And right now, that was enough. The wind pushed against her again. Colder this time. More urgent. As if reminding her, she didn't have long. Eleanor took a slow step forward. Then another. The snow crunched beneath her feet, loud in the silence. She reached the door. It wasn't fully closed. Slightly open, just enough to let the cold air slip inside. Her hand trembled as she touched it. The wood felt rough beneath her fingers. Frozen. For a second, she hesitated. This wasn't her home. She didn't know who it belonged to, or what waited inside. But staying outside wasn't an option. Not anymore. She pushed the door gently. It creaked open, a long, hollow sound that echoed through the stillness. Eleanor stepped inside. The air changed immediately. Still cold, but softer, quieter. The wind no longer cut through her. She closed the door behind her slowly. And for the first time that night, the silence felt different. Not empty, but still, almost protective. Her eyes adjusted to the darkness. Shapes began to form. A table, 2 chairs, a small fireplace in the corner. Everything was covered in dust, but nothing looked destroyed. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt paused, like someone had left, but planned to come back. Eleanor took a careful step forward. Her legs were still weak, but something inside her had shifted. Curiosity. She moved toward the table, ran her fingers lightly across it. A thin line cut through the dust. No one had touched this place in a long time, or so it seemed. Then, something caught her eye. Near the bottom of the table, partially hidden, a small wooden box. Old, simple, but out of place. Eleanor frowned slightly. Her heart began to beat faster. Not from fear. From something else. She slowly bent down. Every movement careful, deliberate. Her fingers reached for the box. Cold would met her skin. She pulled it closer. Set it gently on the table. For a moment, she just looked at it. Something about it didn't feel random. Didn't feel forgotten. It felt important. Her breath slowed. The room seemed quieter now. Like it was waiting. Waiting for her. Eleanor swallowed. Then slowly, she opened the lid. Inside, papers. Neatly stacked. Protected. Preserved. Her fingers hovered above them. She didn't touch them yet. Not immediately. Because deep inside, she felt it. This wasn't just a place she found. This wasn't just a shelter from the cold. This cabin was connected to something. Something from her past. Something she didn't understand yet. But something that was about to change everything. Morning arrived quietly. A soft, pale light slipped through the cabin window, breaking the darkness that had held the night together. Eleanor opened her eyes slowly. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. The wooden ceiling above her felt unfamiliar. The silence, different. Then it came back. The cold. The walk. The cabin. Everything. She pushed herself up slightly. Her body still ached. But it wasn't the same kind of pain. Something had changed. The air felt calmer. Safer. For the first time since she was forced out. She wasn't outside. She looked around the room again. Now, in daylight, things were clearer. The furniture was old, but solid. The fireplace, unused, but intact. Nothing was broken. Nothing was scattered. This place hadn't been destroyed. It had been left. Carefully. Eleanor's eyes shifted toward the table. The box was still there. Exactly where she had left it. For a moment, she just stared at it. As if it might disappear if she moved too quickly. Her heart began to beat faster. Slowly, she stood up. Her legs steadier now, but still weak. Step by step, she walked toward the table. Each movement filled with quiet tension. She reached out, placing her hand on the box again. Cold. Still. Real. She opened it carefully. The papers inside hadn't moved. Neatly arranged. Untouched by time. Eleanor picked up the first one. Her fingers trembled slightly as she unfolded it. Old ink. Faded edges. But still readable. Her eyes scanned the page. At first, it didn't make sense. Legal terms. Numbers. Dates. Then, a name. Her breath caught. She froze. Thomas Hayes. She whispered it without thinking. Her husband's name. Clear. Undeniable. Her heart skipped. No, that's not possible. She grabbed another paper. Then another. Searching. Faster now. Each page revealing more pieces. More details. More connections. Her breathing grew uneven. Why would his name be here? In a place she had never seen? A place he never mentioned? Her hands moved quickly through the stack. Until one document stopped her completely. A property record. Official. Stamped. Her eyes widened as she read it again. And again. The cabin. The land. All of it. Legally owned. By Thomas. Eleanor stepped back slightly. Her mind struggled to catch up. This doesn't make sense. Her voice barely steady. For years, she thought she knew everything about their life. Every struggle. Every decision. They had no secrets. At least, that's what she believed. But this changed everything. She looked around the cabin again. Really looked this time. The walls. The furniture. The quiet stillness. This wasn't just an abandoned place. This was something he had kept hidden. Protected. From everyone. including her. Outside, the world still saw her as a woman with nothing. A woman who had been left behind. But inside this cabin, a different truth was beginning to form. Something powerful. Something unexpected. Eleanor slowly placed the papers back down. Her hands still shaking. Her thoughts racing. One question echoed louder than the rest. Why didn't he tell me? The silence didn't answer. But it didn't need to. Because deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. There was more. Much more. And whatever the truth was, it had been waiting here. For a very long time. Eleanor didn't rush this time. She stood still for a moment, staring at the papers spread across the table. Her breathing slow. Controlled. But inside, everything was moving fast. Too fast. She reached for the top document again. Carefully, like it might disappear if she moved too quickly. Her eyes followed each line. Every word. Every number. And this time, she understood more. The cabin wasn't just a place. It was part of something bigger. Much bigger. She grabbed another paper. Then another. Each one revealing a new piece. A new layer. A new truth. Her hands trembled, but she didn't stop. Property boundaries. Legal signatures. Official stamps. All connected. All real. And all hidden. For years, she whispered, her voice barely steady. For all these years. Her chest tightened. Not from pain. From realization. Thomas hadn't left her with nothing. He had left her with something she never even knew existed. Something no one else knew about. Not Daniel. Not his wife. No one. Eleanor stepped back from the table. Her mind raced through memories. Late nights when Thomas stayed quiet. Moments when he seemed distant. Things she never questioned. Things she trusted too much to ask about. Was this what he was protecting? Was this what he was building, without telling her? Her eyes filled with tears. But this time, they weren't the same tears from before. These weren't tears of loss. They were something else. Something deeper. She picked up the final document. Her hands steadier now. Stronger. Her eyes scanned it slowly. And then, she saw it. Her name. Eleanor Hayes. Written clearly. Legally. Undeniably. She froze. Her breath caught in her chest. No, she whispered. She read it again. And again. There was no mistake. The property. The cabin. The land surrounding it. All of it. Had been transferred. To her. A long time ago. Her fingers tightened around the paper. The room felt smaller for a second. Quieter. Heavier. Then suddenly, everything made sense. The silence. The hidden documents. The secrecy. Thomas hadn't told anyone. Because he wasn't protecting the property. He was protecting her. Eleanor's knees weakened. She dropped the papers. They slipped from her hands, scattering across the floor. And she fell. Not slowly. Not carefully. But completely. Down onto her knees. The wooden floor hit hard. But she didn't feel it. Her hands pressed against the ground. Her head lowered. Tears fell freely now. But not from pain. From something overwhelming. Something she couldn't put into words. I didn't lose everything, she whispered through trembling breath. I never did. The truth wrapped around her. Stronger than anything she had felt that night. They thought she had nothing. They believed she was powerless. But they were wrong. Completely wrong. Because while they were taking everything from her, they had no idea. She already owned something far greater. Something hidden. Something untouched. Something waiting. Eleanor slowly lifted her head. Her eyes moved across the cabin again. But this time, she didn't see an abandoned place. She saw something else. Something real. Something hers. The walls didn't feel empty anymore. The silence didn't feel cold. It felt alive. Her breathing steadied. Her shoulders straightened slightly. And for the first time since that door closed behind her, she didn't feel weak. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Not over everything, but over something. Over her future. Outside, the world still believed the same story. That she had been thrown out. That she had nothing left. But inside this cabin, a different story had begun. One they never saw coming. One they never prepared for. And now, everything was about to change. Eleanor didn't rush back. Not immediately. For the first time in years, she took her time. The cabin needed small things. Cleaning. Warmth. Light. She worked slowly. Carefully. Each movement steady. Each breath calmer than before. The woman who had walked into that cabin was not the same woman now. Days passed. Then one morning, she decided it was time. Not to return, but to be seen. Eleanor walked back into town. Not with hesitation, but with quiet certainty. The streets looked the same. The houses unchanged. But something inside her had shifted. People noticed her. Some looked surprised. Others confused. A few whispered, "She's back." Eleanor didn't stop. She kept walking. Until she reached the house. Her house. Or at least, the one they believed was theirs. She stood at the door. Not trembling this time. Not uncertain. Just still. Then she knocked. Once. Clear. Firm. Footsteps approached from inside. The door opened. Daniel stood there. For a moment, he didn't speak. His face froze. You're back." His voice carried something new. Not anger. Not control. Something closer to confusion. Eleanor looked at him quietly. Then stepped inside, without asking. That alone changed everything. His wife appeared from the hallway. Her expression shifted instantly. Shock. Then tension. "What are you doing here?" she asked sharply. Eleanor didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked to the table. The same table where she once signed everything. Slowly, she placed the documents down. One by one. The sound of paper hitting wood echoed in the silence. "What is this?" Daniel asked. His voice less certain now. Eleanor looked at him. "Come. Steady. Read it." He hesitated. Then reached forward. His hands moved quickly at first. Then slower. His eyes scanned the pages. Once. Then again. His expression changed. Confusion. Turned into disbelief. This isn't." "It is," Eleanor said quietly. No anger. No raised voice. Just truth. The room fell silent. Heavy. Unavoidable. His wife stepped closer. Grabbed one of the papers. Her eyes widened. "That property, this cabin." Eleanor nodded slightly. "It's mine." Two simple words. But they carried everything. Daniel shook his head. "That's not possible. You signed the house over." "I know what I signed," Eleanor interrupted softly. "And I know what you didn't know." Silence again. Longer this time. The balance had shifted. Completely. The same people who once spoke with certainty now stood unsure. Unprepared. "You thought I had nothing," Eleanor continued. Her voice still calm. "But stronger now. I just didn't know what I had." Daniel's shoulders dropped slightly. For the first time, he had no response. No control. No advantage. Only the truth. Sitting in front of him. Clear. Undeniable. Apologies began to form. Broken. Uncertain. "Mom, we didn't mean." Eleanor raised her hand slightly. Not in anger. but in quiet finality. It's too late for that. Her words weren't harsh, but they didn't need to be, because the message was already clear. She wasn't there to ask for anything. She wasn't there to return. She was there to remind them of what they lost, and what they never truly understood. Eleanor picked up her coat, turned toward the door, and without looking back, she walked out, leaving behind silence, and a truth they would never forget. Eleanor didn't look back. Not when she left the house. Not when she walked past the neighbors. Not even when she reached the end of the street. Some chapters don't need revisiting. The cabin stood quietly when she returned, just as it had before. But it didn't feel the same anymore. This time, it felt like home. Real home. The kind that doesn't depend on people or permission. Days turned into weeks. Eleanor worked slowly, cleaning every corner, fixing what she could. She found old tools tucked away, wood stacked neatly behind the cabin. Thomas had prepared more than she realized. He had thought ahead, far ahead. The fireplace came back to life first. A small flame at the beginning, then stronger, warmer. Soon, the cold no longer ruled the space. Light filled the room. Soft, steady. Eleanor moved through her days with quiet purpose. No rush, no pressure, just peace. She planted small things outside, cleared the path, opened the windows to let fresh air in. Little by little, the cabin changed, and so did she. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but it stopped controlling her. It became something else. A reminder, not a weight. One evening, she stepped outside. The sky was painted in soft orange and fading gold, the sun slowly disappearing behind the trees. She stood there, still, watching, breathing, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Calm. Real calm. No noise. No arguments. No expectations. Just her, and the life in front of her. She thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal. The cold night. The door that closed behind her. And then, the cabin. The truth. The second chance she never expected. A small smile formed on her face. Not wide. Not loud. But real. Because now, she understood something clearly. Life doesn't always take from you. Sometimes, it reveals what was hidden. What was waiting. What was always yours. Eleanor took a slow breath, and looked at the cabin behind her. Her home. Her future. Her beginning. Because in the end, she didn't lose everything. She found something greater. Something stronger. Something real. And as the last light faded into the evening, one quiet truth remained. Dreams don't age.